All right, beautiful people, welcome back to another amazing and impactful episode of the True Health Forever podcast, where we try to live our best life through the lens of holistic health. I'm your host, Devon Truvel, creator of Black Wall Street, the board game, and as usual, I have the determined, the resilient, the fist in the air, the laughing queen herself. Please introduce yourself.
What up, party people? Party people,
Oh, she got
party
a whole
people.
song
Hey,
now.
hey, party people, party people, party people. All right. My name
We
is.
can end the episode now. We can just.
Rude. My name is Sinclair, aka
The
Health
Nerd.
Nerd, and yes, here on another Sunday afternoon. It is afternoon, right?
It's a time.
It is some time.
Yes,
Quarantine is just a black hole at this point.
indeed. But, so, thank you for coming back. This is episode 19.
Hey.
We are almost to episode 20. You know, rocking with it. Shout out to all y'all in here. We appreciate it. But, Queen, I know you wanted to just kind of get some nice free-flowing thoughts. So, go ahead. What you want to talk about, Queen? How are you doing, Queen?
Doing pretty good. I feel like we had the pleasure of going to sister's wedding yesterday.
Yes, we did. Shout out.
A beautiful
shout out.
union. It was really nice, but it did start quite a bit later than advertised.
You know.
Which all I gotta say is thank goodness that we did not get there when they said to get there.
Right.
Because then we would have been sitting for like 2 hours.
Yeah, so I mean, my sister, shout out to Anissa and Iron. Congratulations to your new beautiful kingdom and union.
Yes.
So she knows that I'm a very punctual person. So I'm a very punctual person. So, you know, she's not, for the folks who couldn't, see her on the podcast. But she was like, oh, the wedding's going to start at 2:30. And I was like, all right, cool. So we'll be there at 2:30. And she was like, really quickly, actually, on second thought, Devon, show up at 3. We're telling most folks 2:30, but I know you're punctual. So you show up at 3. And I was like, all right, bet. Show up at 3. So we show up at 2:50.
Yep.
And I was
He was
anxious.
already stressing.
Yeah, I was already stressed.
How you know the difference between us? We get in the car, and it says it's going to take 50 minutes. And it was like, I was like, it says we're gonna get there at 2:50. And I knew not to say anything out loud, but in my head I went, perfect. He goes, shit.
Yeah, so specific, it said 2:53.
It did.
And I was like, oh man, that's cutting it really close.
And I'm like, perfect.
Oh my goodness. I'm a very punctual person, especially for weddings. Like, I don't want to be that person that shows up late. I'm knocking at the door while the bride's walking down the aisle or whatever. So I just think worst case scenario in my head.
And I feel like on this instance we're like switched from what we would normally be. I feel like I'm normally a worst case scenario type of person. But when it comes to things like this, I'm just like, I expect everybody to be running late because I just know most people run late. So, and I know I shouldn't, but I operate under the assumption that people run late. So when they don't, that's unfortunate for me. But most of the time they do, and it ends up in our favor. But yes, we have showed up to other people's events early, and they weren't there yet.
We show up on time.
Okay, but if it's a party, like, it was a graduation party that started at 6, and we show up at 5:45. Who shows up to a party early? No, you don't show up to a party early. They weren't even there.
What are the rules, Sinclair? Sinclair, what are the rules?
I'm trying to tell you. For a party, you do not show up early. You show up fashionably late. That depends on how long the event is. But usually, if you ask me, it is 30 to 45 minutes after the start time.
Yeah, those are the rules?
Those are my rules.
Those are your rules?
Those are my rules.
Okay, yes. I agree for when we host things, those are the rules that we go by because she's the queen, so we go by her rules. Now, if I'm hosting an event, if Devon sends you an invitation and that boy says start at 5 o'clock, end at 7 o'clock, That's what we're doing. We're starting at 5.
That means at 4:59, he's like, all right.
I'm prepared.
Everybody.
Right. I am prepared. Those are my rules. Go ahead, Queen. Do your thing.
That's really all I said.
Good.
That's all I had to say. You know, I was just wondering. Well, we were talking earlier about like, okay, if you want to start an event, what time do you tell people to show up?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to start it at 6,
okay.
What time do you tell people to show up?
Me?
I know not to ask you because the answer is 6. Me, I would say 5. But no, I want to do something.
A whole hour?
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. Yep. If I knew that I wanted to give a presentation or do something at 6, or like even for like a surprise party, like if I wanted to throw you a surprise party, best believe I would be like at 6. I would have people show up at 5.
So then, what if people actually show up at 5?
Great, you're early.
Y'all let us know if y'all. What are the rules for you? If you want your event to start at 6 o'clock, what time do you tell folks to show up at your house or at the party? Do you tell them 5 o'clock? Do you tell them 3 o'clock because maybe they're Nigerian and they?
I would say that's the demographic of people usually probably says something too.
Oh my gosh! Shout out to my Nigerians in here. Much love.
Nigerian time is the worst.
You know, Nigerian time and Filipino time.
Those are the worst. Those are absolutely the worst.
Woo! Good times. All right, can we get into this podcast?
I guess good? So.
If you want to start your podcast at 3 o'clock, what time should you actually begin talking? So today's podcast episode, we want to talk about your relationship with food.
Yep.
Okay, so we all might use food for different things. So we're just going to kind of go through our personal ways on how we use food. But then also, you know, the queen, being the health nerd herself, she's also to give y'all some wisdom and some nuggets on how to use food the best.
How to build a healthy relationship with food.
Yes, so let's get into the episode. Alright, and we're back. And Queen, you know, we got the new mic set up, so please make sure you keep talking loud. That way the microphone can pick up all your amazing and beautiful frequencies. No, not those frequencies. Wrong ones.
That was great.
What was it? So, can you lead us off? Relationship with food.
Yeah. So, I feel like when you say food, we all have the same thing with different things that come to mind. Meaning that maybe you're thinking about whatever last meal you had. But we all have a different relationship with food. And because food is something that you consume, unless you're fasting, on a daily basis, you do need food. Not as often as you think, but right. You do need food. It is important to have a healthy relationship with food, because food can be your savior. It can cure, depending on what you believe, FDA don't come for me, but it can help prevent, it can help you feel better. It can help build your health, but it can also build your demise, right? It can also be, if you're not careful, if you're not paying attention to what you're putting into your body. They mentioned this on the Secrets to Success podcast that I was listening to this week. Said if you're not intentional about like your health, and if you're not intentional about what you're putting into your body, you could accidentally end up sick. And so, right, you want to be intentional with it. So I think that that's really just the overall point that I want to drive with this podcast. But as he mentioned, right, we all have different ways that we use food and utilize food. So there's food for fuel, right? Taking a step back, the first step is kind of analyzing what is your relationship with food, right? Your current relationship with food.
So let's pause there, Sinclair.
Yeah.
You know, because, we're married, but apparently you've been on the side with food. And I wasn't aware that we all had this established relationship with food. So talk to me about your relationship with food.
My relationship with food is something that I'm trying to improve upon.
Oh, so you're trying to build and make a stronger relationship with said food.
I am.
All right, I can accept that.
Okay. So I feel like my relationship with food is complex. Ooh. Very complex. Because I have always loved food. Always. Since birth. Always loved food. And like growing up, I danced very heavily, danced for multiple hours every single day. Usually 6 days a week, I was at the dance studio for at least 2 hours. So I was burning a lot of calories. My metabolism was not what it is now. So eating like food was not really wasn't really something that I thought about. It was just, I ate what I wanted. I didn't really gain a whole lot of weight until older. So I feel like I'd always had family members tell me like, oh, it's a good thing you dance. You know, it's a good thing you're active, because if you weren't, there would be another story. So I feel like I never really paid that much attention to what I was putting into my body until probably like teenagers years is when I started to be mindful. It wasn't until probably college that I actually started taking steps towards improving that relationship.
So would you say that prior to high school, your relationship with food was based on pleasure? I'm going to eat food that makes me feel good and that tastes delicious.
Yes, and it more so makes me like my soul feel good, not necessarily my body. Because later on is when I started to pay attention to how it made my body feel. And that's when I was like, okay, let me make some changes. But it was just what I was based on taste. I loved the taste of food, so I would just let me get what's going to taste good and make me temporarily happy.
Gotcha.
That's what it was about. But I feel like what I'm more currently trying to realize is that I do have an emotional connection to food, as everybody does. But one that's not always healthy. So I go to food for when I'm happy, but I also notice that I tend to go to food when I'm not happy, when I'm sad, or when I'm anxious, or sometimes even bored. And so
that bored one's dangerous.
It is. I'm just like, man, like, especially during quarantine, it's right. Dangerous, because you got the kitchen, you got all of your, like, if you're in a office at work, you normally may not have as many things available, but in your home, when you have the fridge and your own cabinet full of snacks, they're available to you 24/7. It's dangerous.
And you got your phone full of apps.
Yeah.
You got the Postmates, the Uber Eats, the Potluck Community. Hey, shout out. Hey. You got all these different things in your phone where you can just have food delivered. Right. So it's like, if I'm bored, what can I order real quick?
Right.
Dangerous.
Very dangerous. Literally whatever you want. Like,
literally.
It's bad. But yeah, I feel like that's something that I'm just becoming more mindful of right now is, okay, especially right now during these very current times of COVID, of racial tensions, I feel like anxiety levels are high.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to be mindful of making sure that that's not a reason that I go turn to food, because that's not necessarily solving anything, right? It's a very temporary, like, oh, okay, man, that tasted good. But did that solve my anxiety? Like, no, it didn't. I'm still having those feelings. I need to get down to the root of the problem. So I feel like I've been very intentional lately on, like, okay, I want to go grab some, I don't really eat chips that often, but I'm going to go grab some chips. Why am I going to grab these chips? Am I hungry? I am kind of hungry. Why am I choosing chips? Because that's a greasy, salty food that I'm craving right now, but I know that that's not the best thing for me, so let me grab some raw almonds instead. Gotcha. So I've been very intentional about, like, okay, if you're hungry, then grab something that's good for you, grab something that's a quick little, almonds are a good little high-protein snack to just satiate you real quick. So I feel like I was going to get to this later in the podcast, but that's, I think, one tip that I would give you if you're trying to improve your relationship with food. Choose what I call a clutch snack. A clutch snack. And that's just something I came up with. I don't know if that's a thing, but I come up with that myself.
You heard it here first, folks.
Create a clutch snack. A healthy snack that you can grab when you're trying to detour from something unhealthy, if that makes sense. So, right? Mine is raw almonds, because it's something that I like. I do like raw almonds. They're healthy and they satiate me quickly. I don't have to eat a whole bunch of them to feel like, okay, that was what I needed. So for me, it's like I grab a handful of raw almonds whenever I'm trying to deter from grabbing the cupcakes at work for whoever's birthday, or there's a popcorn machine, which is my demise. I love popcorn, buttered popcorn. So rather instead of that, I have a little thing of raw almonds on my desk. I'll grab a handful of those, and then I'll be like, all right, good, you satiated. There's no need to go and grab whatever else you were about to grab. Usually, for me, it's either something sweet or salty. But yeah, so figure out what your clutch snack is going to be. Make it healthy. Don't let it be a bag of chips. That's not a clutch snack. That's a treat. Make it be a piece of fruit or vegetables, some apples and peanut butter, or like celery and peanut butter. Nuts. Nuts are a great snack. Try to stay away from like refined carbs in general. But like nuts are a great one if you can eat nuts, and if you like to eat nuts, grab a nut. Some trail mix. Something like that, fruits and veggies. Those are good clutch snacks.
So my go-to snack used to be, and sometimes I used to eat these for lunch, to be honest with you, when days were hard. Natural Valley granola bars. No? Oh, you give me the look. Those aren't popping. All right. Well, I don't eat them anymore, but they used to be my clutch snack, y'all.
And I guess my thing is the reason why I'm saying like nuts or fruits and vegetables is because they're unprocessed. So the reason we talked about the obesity epidemic a couple podcasts ago, but in Obesity Code book that I'm reading, it talks about refined carbs and snacks that have a large carb content being the reason why obesity is such an epidemic right now. Is because those are the things that we go to in between meals. Is the even more the really high processed. So I don't know if that specific like bars is something is a good snack, but oats in general, oats and like whole grains are the good type of carbs you do want to consume. But personally, if you're talking about a snack, it should be something that is low on the glycemic index, which we've talked about before. But that basically means that when you eat it, it doesn't affect your blood sugars and your insulin levels as much. So nuts, fruits, and vegetables, those are all things that apparently nuts have a glycemic index of 0, which is why I say they're the perfect snack. Something you can eat throughout the day and your blood sugar and your insulin levels are not changing. So that's why it's my clutch snack. That's why I do recommend it being a clutch snack for those who can eat them. Obviously, if you have an allergy, do not eat them.
Run.
Right. But that's why I say that they're a good snack. Once you get into like the bars, how processed are they? What are they made of? Some of them, they just slap kind of whole grain on there, or like they advertise it to make it seem like it's healthy, but in actuality, it may not be very different than like a bag of chips or something like that. So I'd have to look into that specific bar you're talking about.
Yeah, let me know.
But I think snack bars in general are, I would be careful. Be careful. I'm not gonna say like don't eat them, but I would be careful. Get the ones that are lower. I mean, if you can find out what their glycemic index is, that would be great.
How would one?
You honestly, I'll search for it. If you just look, like I will Google things. Now I'm normally Googling like oranges or like specific ingredients or like fruits or vegetables or like actual things that are natural. I've never actually looked up like a granola bar or something that's processed. I'm not sure if they have glycemic index for things that are like processed. But for every like fruit or vegetable or like natural food, you can find on the glycemic index. So I usually just Google it literally, and it'll tell you like, I think it's from 0 to 100, and like under 50 is good, and everything else high or something like that.
Gotcha. All right, so let me stop you, because I think we're falling into the glycemic index, the health nerd rabbit hole, and she will tell y'all every bit of detail that y'all need about this. That's why she's the health nerd. Hit her up if you got a question.
Yep.
But getting us back to uses of food.
Yes.
So the first one that we started talking about was using food for pleasure, and that was up through high school for you.
Yeah.
Now, after high school, you maybe changed up a little bit. What was now the shift for you?
I feel like I started to try to shift my mindset to using it more for fuel.
Okay.
Right? So for fuel in terms of, let me not eat from an emotional standpoint, let me eat to give my body what it needs and stop there. I wasn't successful all the time.
But you tried.
But I tried. I did try. But yeah, I feel like that's when I just started to kind of shift the mindset from like, don't always eat for taste and for pleasure. You can't. Every meal can't be that. Otherwise, you're gonna be 500 pounds tomorrow. So I feel like that's when I started to try to shift my mindset to let's try to make most meals feeding yourself for fuel in terms of feeding yourself and giving your body what it needs for nutrients. And then, you know, every now and then have a meal that feeds your soul. That's just like, man, I just really want some pancakes right now.
Yes.
We had pancakes the other day.
Yes, we did. It was delicious. Pancakes with a egg white omelet. Ooh, balance.
There you go. But yeah, I feel like that's when I started to switch it even more. Started to like cutting out soda was the first thing I did really in terms of my diet. First big step that I took was cutting out soda. And then like cutting out meat was the next big thing. So becoming pescatarian was kind of the next big thing that was like, I'm making this intentional step because I know that my body does not feel good when I eat meat on a regular basis. So that was something that I was able to notice and make that change. So that was the shift that I was trying to slowly make, is less of eating from an emotional standpoint and eating towards a food for fuel. Yeah. And I feel like now I'm even shifting towards using food for medicine and using food for health. In terms of like, okay, if I'm noticing that I'm feeling this way, what foods can I, less of the like, what can I avoid, but what foods can I make sure I'm eating a lot of or drinking a lot of, whatever it is, to feel better, to help this specific issue, you know? Like the first major one that I personally was trying to do was blood pressure. It's like, what foods can I be consuming to lower my blood pressure?
And what foods were those? Just in case they didn't catch that episode.
Yes.
What foods were solid for you reducing your blood pressure?
Beets are really good for reducing blood pressure. And honestly, the other thing that I think has helped keep my blood pressure pretty regulated is drinking a superfood powder on a daily basis. And I feel like when I say superfood powder, that doesn't sound necessarily nutritious, but they have flavored superfood powders. And all it is, and the reason why it's superfood in general is because...
Moringa.
Yes.
Ashwagandha. Chlorella. Wheatgrass.
Is that a lot of them are just mixtures of a whole bunch of superfoods like that you can put in water or you can add into smoothies. And how I think of it is basically as a replacement for like a multivitamin. Because a lot of the multivitamins are processed, they're synthetic, they're made in the lab, they're not actually, you know, fruits and vegetables in their whole form. So how I personally think of and how I use the superfood powders is like my source of a kind of a multivitamin, a daily multivitamin, but in a whole food form. So all they're doing is taking all these superfoods and, you know, baking it at a super low temperature just to dry it basically, and then putting it into a powder. So you're still getting all of the fiber, you're still getting all of the parts of the food, it's just in a more bioavailable content.
All those, yes. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate why we're going over this during this time.
Yeah.
And then you hop right back into doing your health nerd stuff. So like right now, while you're home, you might, I know for me personally, my anxiety levels have increased, my stress levels, even though I'm working from home, for some reason still feel like I'm more stressed, or sometimes I feel bored. So you have to, like, I've had to catch myself, like, going to the fridge. I'm just like, why am I walking to the fridge right now?
Right.
Like, I'm not hungry. I don't eat breakfast. There's really no reason for me to be walking towards the fridge right now. Or I'll be like, oh, you know, I really want to eat some bad food. Why do I want to eat bad food right now? Like, why am I craving fried chicken and waffles when I don't even eat chicken? You know, that doesn't make sense. Right. I don't eat chicken, so why am I craving this thing that I don't even eat? And it's because of how I'm feeling emotionally, and I feel like I'm used to being able to go to food for those things, but because I'm home more often, I feel anxious more often, I'm having those thoughts more often. So we just wanted to make sure that we bring that to our community and make sure that y'all are being like mindful of what you're doing. Don't just automatically, you know, go to Netflix all day and watch stuff. Don't just automatically go to the refrigerator or go to Postmates and eat or order bad food. Like, take a second to think, why am I doing this? What emotions am I feeling right now that are drawing me to watch this thing? Or what emotions am I feeling right now to make me consume this food? Consumption is consumption. So whether you're consuming media, consuming food, social media, all of that, thank you, Queen, all of that is consumption, and you're being motivated by something internally. Right. So you want to make sure you get to that root and either solve that root or at least just know that it's there so that you can make other steps to solve it. Go ahead, Queen.
I was just going to say, I feel like you may not always be able to figure out, like, to fix it necessarily. Like, okay, I know that I'm feeling anxious right now. There's a lot going on in the world. There's not a whole lot I can do outside, but maybe I can, start doing some yoga and meditation to try to help my anxiety levels on a daily basis. But even if you can't necessarily get down to, like, the root of the problem, like he said, acknowledging it and being aware is the first step. Right. So I feel like if you want to kind of get into that mindset of how can I start being mindful of the things I'm doing and the things I'm putting in my body. We've mentioned it before, but some type of food journal or food diary I think is very helpful. And if you know that you have an emotional connection to food and you want to start to track that, what I would start to do is not only track what you're eating, but track how you're feeling in that moment. So, right, I'm having a breakfast smoothie and I feel motivated. Awesome. For lunch, I'm having a hamburger and fries, and I feel stressed. That's interesting. That's different. For breakfast, right? Different. Yeah. For breakfast, you had a healthy smoothie, and you were feeling motivated. For lunch, you were feeling stressed, and now you're having a hamburger, fries, and a vanilla shake. So that's a different mindset there. So when you're maybe, and if that's a pattern, right? Maybe just not just a one-time thing, but if you're noticing that pattern, like, when I'm feeling stressed, normally the food is unhealthier. That's a pattern you can start to recognize so that the next time you feel stress coming on, you can at least say, okay, what I'm not gonna do right now is go order a whole pizza and eat it by myself. Like,
can I add one thing to that journal? Yeah. I love this journal idea. I would say, taking it a step further, how did you feel after you ate the food? Yep. Because if you start eating the hamburgers and the french fries and the shakes, which right now honestly sounds very delicious, if you eat that and then afterwards you feel a certain way, I'm assuming you're probably going to feel a little bit negative. I would, because I'm lactose intolerant, so if I'm drinking this shake, automatically my stomach bubbling up. Yeah. If I get a burger from In-N-Out, even if I don't eat meat, even if I get cheese on it, I'm bubbling up. So automatically I'm thinking I'm not going to feel tip-top shape afterwards. Whereas if I get a superfood smoothie, or if I eat a really green, rich salad, and afterwards I feel motivated, I feel light, I feel energized, now I can use that food as a trigger for myself. So if I'm feeling down and I know that eating salad historically makes me feel up, I can go to that salad and make me feel up. Yep. So then again, if you know how you feel, you can start using food as medicine for yourself and get yourself either motivated, get more energy, whatever it is.
I feel like it's like opposite. When you are feeling down and you turn to food to try to feel better and you eat something unhealthy.
Yeah, you just go more down.
Right. But I feel like you, in the moment, right, you're like, oh man, this hamburger and fries and shake is so good. So like you're feeling up about it right as you're eating it in that moment. But then later on, yeah, like you said, usually it's like, man, that was probably not the best decision. Like my stomach's not happy right now and I'm back to feeling exactly how I was feeling beforehand. Exactly. Whereas on the other side, you may not feel as excited to eat that salad, but you know that afterwards you're going to feel like, oh man, I'm really glad I ate that salad. I feel like we had that moment. I don't remember if it was, time is a warp. I don't remember if it was,
what is it? What is it?
I literally don't remember when this was, but we had like a nice stir fry and I was like, one of the things I'm trying to do is cut down on the refined carbs. So instead of white rice, we had cauliflower rice. And I can't say I was excited to eat cauliflower rice, but I was excited to see, like, how am I going to feel after this meal? And afterwards, I like turned to him and I was like, I feel good. I feel good after eating this meal. I feel light. I feel like, normally I feel like you eat a meal and sometimes you can feel really heavy and really like, ugh, yucky. But I was like, I feel light and I feel motivated. I feel good after eating that meal. So now I'm like, oh, we're eating cauliflower rice. Now I'm like, why?
That's what it is.
Right. So I feel like keep that in mind, that even though you might not be excited at first to go do that, keep in mind how you feel afterwards. And let that be your driving force towards eating whatever that food is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I feel like you might be able to explain this. You will be able to explain this better than me. But around like how your body immediately reacts to salt and immediately reacts to sugar and fat, like as far as the pleasure senses and stuff. And I don't know if you want to talk about that, but my general point is when you're eating the burger, the steak, the shake, like all those things that have high salt, high fats, high sugar, it feels pleasing to you because your body's like, oh yes, I'm getting this extra rush of dopamine. Thank you, Queen. Yes. Health nerd, I appreciate you. You're getting this immediate rush of dopamine, and that's why you think you're feeling good. Just like when you look on, social media and your post got 1,000 likes, you're like, oh, dopamine, automatically you feel immediately good. But it doesn't necessarily have lasting effects because there was no nutrition in that content. Whereas if you eat the salad, you might not feel immediately good because they don't have those things in it, but your body is extracting that nutrient. So you need to just look for that delayed gratification instead of the instant gratification. I'm
not trying to put anybody on blast, but these foods are literally engineered to keep you hooked. They are literally...
They're drugs.
They are drugs.
Food is drugs.
They are drugs, right? Food is drugs.
Yeah.
food, talking about what food is, food can be a drug. So yes, when you're talking about like a food industry business, they are trying to get your money. They are trying to get your money on a repeated basis. So they are going to put whatever in their food they need to get you back. All right. So keep that in mind when you're eating these things. That is why you feel so dang good while eating it.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. It's like, oh, this is so good. That is how they engineered it.
Food high?
Yes, how they engineered it. They engineered it literally to send those signals, right? It's dopamine, just like any other drug. Like it sends signals, pleasure signals to your brain. Like, oh my goodness, this is so good. I need more of it. So yes, to your point, but we need to practice more of the delayed gratification, right? Yes, you're going to eat a salad. You may not get those. Maybe you do. And if you do, more power to you. More power to you. And then for a good salad, I feel like that happens too, every now and then. But not all the time. But if you're eating a healthy kale salad, you may not get those same dopamine signals, those same like, oh, this is so good right now. But yes, your body is going to love you way more later on because you're giving it the nutrients it needs. And 30 minutes after your meal, rather than feeling like, oh man, I got a food baby and I'm about to go into a food coma, you're going to feel like, ooh, all right. Well, what's next? What are we doing?
Let's get some stuff done.
Right, let's get some stuff done.
Yes.
So I think that you're spot on. I feel like keep in mind that delayed gratification, and this is for life, but if we're talking about food in general, like keep in mind that we're here for the long run, right? If we're only eating for this temporary pleasure, you're cutting your lifespan by, Lord knows, I don't know by how long, but you're probably cutting your lifespan by a few years if you're only focusing on the now. You have to also, and I'm not saying every meal, right? Moderation, everything's in moderation. You can have that meal that's going to make you feel good in that moment every now and then. But most of your meals should be comprised of things that are going to make you feel good for the long run, that are going to treat your body good, treat your body well for the long run, and they're going to expand your lifespan. So just keep that in mind. I feel like when we think about like the salad, we instantly think about like, I know in the moment I'm not going to enjoy eating that as much as this other thing. But if we try to keep in mind like when you look at that salad, think about, instead of thinking about like, oh, that's not gonna, what you're not gonna eat, instead of thinking about like, that's not gonna be as good as a hamburger and fries, think about like, that's 3 more years of my lifespan. That's me seeing my great grandbabies.
There you go. That adds the emotional value to it. I like that idea.
Think about more than just the salad. Like think about what a lifetime of eating, of making good decisions like that can do for you. That's what you should think about. That's what I think about. Like when I'm in those moments when I'm like, I'm like, no, I want to see my great grandbabies.
Ooh, all the greats. Come on now, all the greats. I respect that. That was a great point. All right, let's shift it up. So you said the last thing that we mentioned before we went into that rabbit hole, we appreciate y'all for rocking with us. There were some good nuggets in there. Was using food as medicine, which I think is huge and very important. What would be the I don't even know if there is a next stage to that, but what's after that, Queen?
After using food as medicine?
Yeah, or what tips do you have for folks to maybe transition from using food for emotional comfort, or using food for just fuel, or using food for just pleasure? How can folks go from this way of life, which we used to be on and, you know, still go to occasionally, but then transition to focusing on using food for medicine or using food for healthy fuel?
Yeah. So I think it's, first identify what is your current relationship. Be very honest with yourself. What is your current relationship with your food? Assess it. Food journal. Really think about like what in a holistic view, what is your relationship? And then think about what do you want it to be? So you mentioned, do you want it to be food as medicine? Do you want it to be food as fuel? Whatever it is, decide what you want it to be, and then make very small changes. Do not make any drastic changes. Don't come up with a list of 5 changes and do them all tomorrow, because that is not sustainable. Trust me. Instead, come up with your list of things you want to do. Like, okay, I want to use food as medicine. Okay. So start small, right? Maybe, okay, I'm going to start consuming a smoothie that has something that's good for my health in it every day. One small thing, right? Then maybe you go to a salad. Then maybe you go to, I don't even know what's after that. Or then maybe you go into like trying to supplement, maybe you go vegetarian after that. These are just examples.
So I have a very small step.
Okay.
That this wasn't my first step, but this was a step that we tried to incorporate in our habits. And that was, when you wake up in the morning, the first thing that you consume is a cup of water with either some lemon, or if you want to, pro tip it, some apple cider vinegar, just a little bit. So I think that automatically starts you off with, I'm being intentional. First thing I'm putting into my body is pure water with some lemon in it, and the lemon helps to alkalize your body and also speed up your metabolism. So if you start getting into the habit of putting things into your body that are good for you, starting off in the morning, hopefully that habit will then start to trickle down into other things. Yeah. But that's something that you can do pretty easily, pretty cheap. Go get you a bag of lemons and then just squeeze a little bit of lemon water every single day. Yeah. That would be another tip.
Yeah, and I think taking advantage of doing those things in the morning, I think, is the best way to start. Because we've mentioned this in other podcasts too, is your willpower is strongest right when you wake up. You're less influenced by the world. You haven't seen all of the McDonald's and Burger King commercials yet and billboards. So you're waking up, and that is a very good intentional first step to show your brain and show your body, I want to treat my body good today, so I'm going to drink this water. And I actually do superfood powder in mine. I started doing that in my daily water. But good lemon water is how I started out. But I feel like that's a very good step to say. One, it's a good detoxing. So they say your body does its most detoxing between like 7 and 11 a.m. So if
you better know these health facts, Queen. I see you.
So that's usually when most people are, waking up and getting their day started. So making sure that drinking that water is gonna kind of help flush you out, so that you start the day feeling good. You don't start the day feeling all the food you ate yesterday. You start it like, okay, I'm fresh, I'm empty, I'm ready to go. I think that's a really good first step. I feel like decide what I would say start with either a meal. That's probably what I would recommend. So like breakfast, if you eat breakfast, start with that. Or start with lunch. Breakfast is probably a good one to start with though. Or you can start with a specific ingredient. Maybe you want to eat more kale. Maybe you want to eat more spinach. And just try to work on how can I incorporate these things in my meals. So if you drink a smoothie, all right, I'm going to add some spinach or kale to my smoothies. If you have a salad, add some kale. If you have soup, if you have stir fries, whatever you have, you can figure out how to add some kale or some spinach or some peppers, whatever type of vegetable or nutrient you're trying to add it to your meals. So those are 2 different kind of approaches you can take to it. We kind of took the meal approach in terms of like, all right, we're replacing our first meal with smoothies. So that's how we did it. But If you want to go more the route of just like, I want to focus on ingredients, like, okay, I know that I just want to feel better, or I want to lower blood pressure, so I want to eat more beets, figure out how I can incorporate more beets. Whatever it is, those are kind of two different approaches you can take.
Sounds good. Okay. Ready to wrap up the episode, Queen? Oh, all that, yes. Would you like to do it? You were given most of the nuggets in this one.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the True Health Forever podcast, where we try to live our best life through holistic health and bring you along for the journey.
Yes.
Spitting nuggets.
Nuggets. Spitting them, apparently.
So again, thank you for joining us. My name is Sinclair, aka Theeehealthnerd, and I'm here with
Devon Truvel, creator of Black Wall Street, the board game.
Make sure you stay healthy, make sure you stay mentally wealthy, and most importantly, make sure you stay true.